carrying 2 folding chairs toward the garage when Brooke said, without looking up from the cooler she was reorganizing, "You know you do this at every single one of these, right?" I stopped. The chairs were awkward in my arms, metal legs catching the sleeve of my flannel. "Do what? Find a job." She straightened up and looked at me. Right when things slow down, you find something to carry or someone to help or a reason to be on the other side of the yard. I didn't say anything. My brother Carter was 20 feet away at the grill, still wearing the ridiculous chef's apron his girlfriend had given him as a joke, that he now treated as actual equipment. His backyard was full of people. Some I knew well, some I half recognized, all of them now drifting into the slower, softer version of the afternoon where the food was gone and the conversations turned real. That was exactly when I had picked up the chairs. "I'm helping clean up," I said. "Carter's mom isn't even here yet, and she's the one who actually cares about cleanup." Brooke tilted her head a little. "Put the chairs down, Grayson." I didn't put the chairs down right away. I stood there holding them like they were proof of something. Brooke was Carter's older sister, which meant I had known her in the loose, peripheral way. You know the people who orbit your best friend's life. She was 27, a physical therapist, back in Clover Falls for the summer after her clinic in Denver had lost its lease, and the replacement space wasn't ready until September. At least, that was Carter's version. Brooke had never explained it to me directly. We had never really talked directly about anything, until right now. I set the chairs against the fence. "There," I said. "Thank you." She went back to the cooler, pulling out cans that were still cold and consolidating them into one side. "How long have you been doing it?" "Doing what specifically?" "Leaving before the part where people stop being at a party and start just being people." That was too accurate for a Tuesday afternoon in someone's backyard. I looked toward the back porch. Carter's neighbor Phil was telling a story that had everyone leaning in. 2 of Carter's college friends were sitting on the steps sharing a bag of chips and talking in the quiet way that meant they were saying something they actually meant. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said. Brooke gave me a look that said she was not going to argue about whether she was right. "You've been here 3 hours. You've had 2 burgers, fixed Phil's lawn chair when the leg wobbled, refilled the chip bowl twice, and helped Carter's dad find his sunglasses. Now you're doing chairs." She closed the cooler. "The second people get comfortable, you get useful." I crossed my arms. "Some of us were raised to help out. Some of you are scared of staying when there's nothing left to do but be there." She said it without heat. Not an attack, just a sentence she had sitting around and finally found a place to sit down. "What happens if you just sit?" "I sit." "Grayson, what?" She leaned against the cooler and looked at me straight. "Not the way people look at you when they want something. The way they look at you when they already know. When's the last time you stayed somewhere past the point where you could still leave without anyone noticing?" I didn't have an answer for that. Which was, I understood immediately, the answer. Carter called from the grill. "Brooke, did you see where I put the extra tongs?" "Cabinet above the microwave," she called back. Then, quieter, to me, "Stay 20 minutes. Don't carry anything. Don't fix anything. Just sit somewhere like you belong there." "That's not advice," I said. "That's a dare." She smiled at that, like she had been waiting for me to name it. "Sure, 20 minutes. Then you can leave if you want." "And what exactly does that prove?" "Maybe nothing." She shrugged. "Or maybe you find out the thing you're bracing for doesn't actually come." "What thing?" Her expression shifted. Still calm, but something softer underneath. "That everybody looks over and realizes you don't fit." I went very still. The yard kept moving around me. Phil finished his story. People laughed. Carter's dad refilled his lemonade. A dog I hadn't noticed before wandered over from the neighbor's side of the fence, sniffed once at my shoe, and wandered back. I wanted to say she was projecting. I wanted to make a joke about amateur psychology and backyard settings. I wanted to pick the chairs back up and finish walking them to the garage. Instead, I said, "You don't know that's what it is." "No," Brooke said, "but you act like you've already checked and confirmed it." Carter appeared from the side of the house. He looked between us and raised his eyebrows. "You too good?" "Fine," I said. "He's staying 20 more minutes," Brooke said. Carter pointed at me. "Finally." Then he went back inside for the tongs like this was a normal thing that had happened. I stood there for a second. Then I walked to the porch steps and sat down. Nobody looked at me like I was strange for sitting. Phil moved over slightly without making a show of it. Carter's girlfriend handed me a soda without asking. The conversation about nothing in particular continued right over and around me, and I was in it without having to announce it. Brooke did not sit near me. She went and joined the group on the other side of the yard, talking to Carter's neighbor's wife about something I couldn't hear. Once, she glanced over, not checking on me, more like confirming that the experiment was running. 20 minutes passed, then 30. Carter's mom arrived, and instead of taking that as my exit, I helped her carry in the extra folding table she'd brought. Carter's dad told the same story about his first car twice, and I laughed the second time too, because the way he told it was genuinely good. Bill asked me what I did for work, and when I said I managed inventory for a regional hardware distributor, he said his brother-in-law did something similar in Knoxville, and we had a real conversation about it for 15 minutes that I did not once try to escape. When I finally left, it was because the sun had gone down and Carter was walking people out. Not because I had measured the right moment and slipped through it. Brooke was on the porch when I came through. Longer than 20 minutes, she said. I wasn't counting. Yes, you were. She was right. I had been counting, old habit. But somewhere around the 40-minute mark, I had stopped mattering to myself as a person about to leave and just became part of the evening. Good night, Grayson, she said. In my car, I sat with the engine running for longer than necessary. The windows were fogging slightly at the edges. My phone had a notification from a work email I didn't want to open. I looked at Carter's front porch light through the windshield and thought about how I had expected something bad to happen when I stopped being useful. And nothing bad had happened at all. That should have made it simple. It didn't. Brooke texted me 2 days later, on a Thursday, while I was eating lunch at my desk and reviewing a shipment order that had 3 line items coded wrong. So do you have a chair-carrying origin story, or is it just instinct? I read it twice, then set my phone face down and finished the shipment order, then picked the phone back up. Probably instinct at this point, I typed, "Why? Just curious. You seem surprised or worked. That I could sit down without the world ending. That nobody asked you to leave." I looked at that for a moment. Nobody's ever asked me to leave. I looked at that for a moment. Nobody's ever asked me to leave. I wrote back. That's sort of the problem. She didn't answer right away. I thought maybe I had said too much, landed the conversation somewhere heavier than a Thursday texting exchange was meant to hold. But 20 minutes later, she replied, "That's actually the most honest thing you've said to me in the 7 years I've known you peripherally." 7 years feels like an overstatement. Carter's 29th birthday at the lake house. You left before the bonfire. I had work. On a Saturday in June, I put the phone down again. She was right. I hadn't had work. I had had that feeling. The one that came when the party shifted into something slower, when people started talking about real things instead of safe things, when the space between people got smaller and warmer, and I always seemed to find a reason to be somewhere else before it could include me. You have a very good memory, I typed. You're very consistent, she replied. It makes you easy to track. After that, we texted the way you do when you're not calling it anything. She sent me a picture of a patient's foam roller she had customized with grip tape because the hospital supply ones were terrible. I sent her a photo of the most inexplicably damaged pallet I had received that week, which had somehow arrived with forklift marks on 3 separate sides. She replied, "A mystery for the ages." I replied, "Insurance is investigating." She replied, "Keep me posted on the pallet drama." It was nothing. It was also the thing I looked forward to most between Monday and Friday, which I did not admit to myself directly. By the time Carter's end-of-summer barbecue came around, he did a lot of barbecues. Carter, it was genuinely one of his core personality traits. I had texted Brooke more times than I had texted anyone outside of work in recent memory. Carter opened the door and squinted at me. "You're not late. I'm 2 minutes early." "Exactly," he let me in. "She's in the backyard already." "I'm here for your barbecue, Carter." "Sure." He handed me a drink. "She's by the drink table." I went to the backyard. Brooke was at the drink table, cutting lemons into a plastic bin with the focus of someone who actually cared how the lemonade turned out. She had her hair pulled back, sunglasses up on her forehead, and a light blue shirt that looked like she'd grabbed it without thinking, and it had turned out right anyway. She looked up. Grayson. Not a greeting exactly. More like confirmation of something she had expected. You need help? I asked. I need you to stop standing there like you're waiting for permission to be at a party you were personally invited to. I moved to the table and started moving cups around to be useful. She handed me a lemon half without asking. For the first hour, it was easy. The way big gatherings are always easy. There's enough noise and motion that you can be in it without being exposed to it. I talked to Phil again. I lost badly at cornhole against two people I barely knew. I had a good conversation with Carter's dad about whether the current truck market was ever going to normalize, and we agreed that it probably wasn't. But then, because it always happened, the afternoon changed. Phil sat down. The cornhole game ended. Carter pulled out acoustic guitar, which he only did when he was comfortable enough not to care that he wasn't very good. Conversations tightened into smaller groups. Someone turned the speaker down. My body noticed before my brain did. I found myself holding an empty plate. I looked toward the side gate. I started doing the calculation. Who had seen me? Who would notice if I shifted toward the edge? Whether Carter would look up from the guitar in the next 30 seconds. Grayson. Brooke appeared beside me. She had her car keys in her hand. My brother needs ice from the gas station 2 blocks over, she said. Come with me. I looked at the gate, at the keys, at her. Why do you need me to go get ice? Because you were about to do the thing. I wasn't. You had your phone out and you hadn't looked at it in an hour. I put the phone in my pocket. Fine. We took her car, a silver Subaru with a cracked bumper sticker she had half peeled off and abandoned halfway, and a travel mug in the cup holder that had probably been empty for a week. She drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the window frame, letting the warm, late August air come through the gap. Neither of us said anything for the first block. Then I said, you do that on purpose. Do what? Appear right before I leave. I give Carter a ride when he needs one. I help his friends when they're stuck. She glanced over. You just happen to always need it at the same moment. That feels like a distinction without much difference. She smiled at the road. Probably. We passed the elementary school, the diner that had been there since Carter and I were in middle school, the hardware store where I had gotten the summer job at 17 and learned more about PVC pipe than I ever expected to retain. The town was small enough that you could drive it end to end in 15 minutes and feel like you had visited your whole life at once. Does it bother you? I asked, being back here for the summer. She was quiet for a second. Depends on the day. What made you leave Denver? Really? She looked over. Carter's version or mine? Yours. She turned into the gas station lot and parked, didn't get out. I built this whole setup out there. Apartment, clinic, relationship, routine. It looked like what you were supposed to want when you were 27 and figuring things out. She looked through the windshield at the gas station sign. I kept waiting to feel like it fit, and it didn't. And instead of dealing with that, I convinced myself I just needed more time, more commitment, more patience. She paused. The relationship ended because I stayed in it long enough that staying was the problem instead of any one thing inside it. I didn't say anything right away. That doesn't sound like you, I said. She turned to look at me. What does sound like me? Someone who knows when something isn't working and does something about it. That's just confidence from the outside. She opened her door. Come on, ice. Inside, she grabbed a 20-pound bag from the freezer chest by the entrance. I picked up a second one without her asking. The cashier, an older man named Earl who had worked there since before I had a driver's license, looked between us and said, You two together, getting ice for a barbecue, Brooke said. Earl rang it up. Carter's? Yeah. Tell him I liked the ribs last time. He looked at me. You're Jerry Holt's kid, right? The one who does warehousing. Inventory management, I said. But yeah, your dad said you were good at it. I didn't know what to do with that. I hadn't known my dad talked about my job to people. I said, that's good to hear, and meant it more than it probably sounded. Back in the car, Brooke set the bags in the back seat and sat without starting the engine. Evening was settling in, that particular quality of late summer light that makes everything look like a photograph of itself. I kept staying because leaving felt like admitting I had chosen wrong, she said. Continuing a thought she hadn't quite closed. I hate that. Admitting you were wrong in front of people who watched you choose. I looked at her. She was looking straight ahead. I do the opposite, I said. I know. I leave before I can be wrong about staying. She turned to me. Something in her expression was steady. Not soft exactly, but present. What are you afraid happens if you stay? I looked out the passenger window at a man filling his tank. A kid in the back seat of the car beside him pressing their face against the glass. The ordinary Tuesday mechanics of other people's evenings. That I let somebody see what I actually want, I said, and then they have something on me. Brooke didn't say anything for a moment. Then, something on you. Like they can leave now. They have the information. They know I care, so they can decide what to do with it. I stopped. That had come out more plainly than I intended. Forget it? I'm not going to forget it. Brooke, you literally just said something real. She started the car. I'm not going to pretend you didn't. We drove back without the radio. Not uncomfortable. Just waited in a way that felt like it was carrying something that needed to be carried. The barbecue, Carter took the ice from us and said, "Took you guys long enough." And Brooke said, "We had to wait for Earl to finish telling your friend here about his father." And Carter looked at me and said, "Earl knows your dad?" And I said, "Earl knows your dad." And I said, "Apparently." And somehow it folded back into the evening like we had only been gone 10 minutes, which we had, but it had felt like longer in the way that a conversation can stretch time. The rest of the night was easier, not because I was a different person. I still felt the pull around 9 o'clock when Carter set the guitar down and the yard went quiet and real. I still noticed where the gate was, but Brooke was sitting on the other side of the fire pit, talking to Carter's girlfriend about something I couldn't hear. And every so often she would glance over, not hovering, not watching me like a project, just checking in the way you check in on someone when you've made a small agreement with them that you haven't put a name to. I stayed until Carter started carrying chairs in, and then I carried chairs in, and this time it wasn't to have something to do. It was just because it was time to go and the chairs needed carrying. Brooke was on the front porch when I came out, keys in hand. "You made it to chair carrying as an exit instead of an escape," she said. "Growth," I said. "Look at you." I stood there for a second. The street was quiet. A few porch lights on, somebody's sprinkler clicking on down the block. "Thanks for making me go get ice," I said. "I didn't make you. You showed up at the right moment." She looked at me with that direct, unhurried look. "I usually do." I drove home thinking about the gas station parking lot and her voice saying I hate admitting I was wrong in front of people who watched you choose. Thinking about how I had said the thing I always kept back, that I was afraid of being seen wanting something. And the world had not ended, and she had not used it against me. And the only thing that had changed was that I was now a person who had said it. I didn't sleep especially well. That felt about right. 3 weeks later, on a Wednesday evening, I drove past the park on the east side of town without planning to, the way you drive places when your body knows where it wants to go before your brain has approved the trip. There was a food truck event, the kind Clover Falls did every couple months when the weather was still good, and I had seen it mentioned in the town events newsletter I subscribed to and never read. I didn't go in. I parked on the street and sat with the windows down and the engine off. I could hear music from the bluegrass group they always got for those things, and I could smell something fried and good from the truck nearest the entrance. My phone buzzed. "Brooke, are you sitting outside the park right now?" I looked up. She was standing at the entrance, a paper cup in her hand, looking in my direction. I could have driven away. I want to be honest about that. The engine wasn't running, but it would have taken 4 seconds. The parking spot was head in. I could have backed out smooth and clean and been gone before she reached the car. I got out instead. "How did you see me?" I said, walking toward her. "Your car is very recognizable." She handed me the paper cup. "Here, hot cider." I got 2 because the line was terrible and I didn't want to go back. "You didn't know I was here?" "I got 2 because I hoped." She said it simply, without making it into something romantic or loaded. Just the fact of it, out in the open. "Come on, there's a pretzel truck that's actually good." We walked the food truck loop and she made me try 3 things I would not have tried on my own, including a smoked brisket slider that was genuinely one of the best things I'd eaten in months. The bluegrass group was better than usual. The crowd was the town's mix. Older couples, young families, groups of people our age who had either never left or come back for reasons they were still working out. Somewhere around the second loop, she said, "You almost didn't come in. I came in. After sitting in your car for 4 minutes. You timed me. I was watching." She said it without apology. "I figure that's fair since you've been watching yourself leave places for 30 years. I laughed. A real one. The kind that comes out before you've approved it. She looked at me when I laughed. Not like she was collecting a point, but like she was glagging. We ended up sitting on one of the low stone walls at the edge of the park while the event wound down. The sky had gone that particular September dark that felt different from summer dark, cooler and more serious. She had her jacket over her shoulders. I was sitting close enough that our arms were touching and neither of us had moved away. "I like this," I said. She looked at me. This. I meant all of it. But specifically the wall, the night, the fact that I was still there, not having to perform and not having to disappear. "That's a new option," she said. "The middle thing." "Yeah." I looked at the last of the food truck lights. "I didn't know it was available." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "It's available." I turned to look at her. She was already looking at me, and for once I didn't make a joke about it. Didn't look away. Didn't find something in the middle distance to study until the moment passed. "Brooke," I said. "I know." She said, "I'm going to be slow at this. I know that too. I'm going to want to leave sometimes and talk myself out of it, and that's going to be annoying. Probably. I'm saying this is real. However slow it is." She held my gaze. "It's already real, Grayson. It's been real since you put the chairs down." The bluegrass group played one last song and we stayed until they finished. When we finally stood up to go, I did not look for the exit. I did not calculate who might see or what it would mean if they did. I walked with her to her car, and she handed me the last of the cider and I drank it, and when she drove away, she waved through the window without looking back, the casual wave of someone who was not worried she had miscalculated. I stood on the curb for a moment. The street was quiet. My car was half a block up. The night was cool and clear and had the smell of fall arriving at the edges. I had stayed. I had stayed all the way until there was nothing left to stay for, and even then, I had not wanted to go, and that feeling, the wanting to stay, sat in my chest like something I finally had permission to keep.